Are you navigating the turbulence order of growing your company, and especially with this data-driven field and with the financial uncertainty on making the right decision on what to do next? You're probably doing a lot of things already and getting some traction, but can you get to the point that you know exactly what to do and do the way that you like to do it, and while your company are going in the projection that you like to do? And not just it seems to be working out, but what could actually make everything better. Now, join us today as we delve into the effective way and strategy for leveraging big data and managing revenue fluctuation to boost profit margin and ensuring sustainable growth in the healthcare industry.
Welcome to HealthTech Growth, the weekly podcast for healthcare founders and innovators, where we explore essential strategies to create successful and sustainable healthcare startups that improve patient outcomes and transform the healthcare industry.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sabrina Rumback, your host here, and we have our co-founder, Dr. Aaron Bryant, joining us, who has over 3 decades of experience spanning of healthcare, technology, and consultancy. He is able to bring a wealth of knowledge to us to the table. His role have ranged from overseeing technology system to medical facility to implementing vital healthcare project across the entire state, as well as national projects. As someone who had been a game changer, Dr. Bryant managed international teams for multiple giving systems and at the California Department of Healthcare Services, he played a vital role in implementing the Affordable Care Act in covered California, and he has been in an extensive leadership position to Kaiser Permanente, where he managed the technological system and overseeing strategic purchasing and security upgrades. And beyond this, Dr. Bryant has been deeply committed to mental well-being for the veterans and hosts the Field Talk podcast to promote awareness and support. And he brings a blend of medical expertise and strategic thinking, as well as technological acumen to our clients, making him an invaluable asset to the system that we're creating, and truly about how do we not only be an expert in our own domain expertise, but collaboratively able to grow the people, the system, the service that we are all supporting in healthcare, and redefining what we truly believe what success is at the end of the day. And someone who is on his next big chapter of getting another doctorate degree in psychiatry, just PhD, MD, just not enough letter behind his name, right? We needed to pick up some more.
Yeah, exactly. Too much time on my hands.
Right? And like once you don't have that time, you're like, oh, it's not too much time, right? We always prioritize something different and something that we are passionate about. And that's
Right.
where you are in your phase now. And just like all our listeners, the gifted founders, the established company leaders, CEOs, and CEOs on that round, we tend to have different ideas of what success really truly means for us. And sometimes when we're doing too many things, or perhaps the things that are going well, but then we have this innate question: is that enough? Am I on a right trajectory, right? With you being in multiple facets of executive position, in leadership position, and working with a different variety of government, nonprofit, profit-driven startups, what has been some of the common trends that you're seeing in the market space today?
I think some of the trends, honestly, it probably has a lot to do with, managing the revenue, there's a lot of different companies out there, specifically in the healthcare industry. They're trying to improve their profit margins. You have this financial and operational tug of war when you're relating to like key performance indicators. The KPIs are always critical. And then, of course, a lot of money goes into the tech. And so I think there's a big thing relating to how to balance that and make decisions because it is a big budget. So figuring out your big data and trying to make the decision as it relates to your particular healthcare organization or any company of that matter. So I think these are some of the biggest ones that a lot of these leaders are really struggling with.
Right. And at the end of the day, healthcare is not cheap.
No.
And it's not about doing things the cheap way. It's about doing the thing the most effective way and value giving way to create that impact. And for us, really, we see impact on the 12 different scales and spectrums. And sometimes it's not about, oh, we're making great traction. Awesome. Like, are you making traction on both your financial side, your people that you're reaching, the team that truly will stand behind you, and noticing even from top down or bottom up, whoever is in that process of working together is truly understand all the elements and knowing how to support each other in their own way and not saying, oh, I know I need ABC. Who's going to fill that gap, right? So sometimes I feel like as we're growing and tapping into this a specific topic, it's challenging to get to the spot of instead of thinking I need this, it's more like how can I support other people in where they need so they can support me in what I need, right? And like it's a complex system to really get around. So when you're thinking about making the decision of picking the right business model, and is it always seems like people has worked on the business model for a long time and they're just making small tweak, or do you feel like a lot of companies are in a space of, oh, it doesn't work, let's just complete a revamp, right? Or you just don't see people actually know how to double down on something?
That's probably one of the biggest challenges is, having to double down. And that usually comes from somebody like myself who's worked as a consultant. We would typically come in and identify a lot of the issues and errors, a lot of the inefficiencies, and we will necessarily look at it. But we say double down, and we say that it's not so much the same way. You may have to make some changes only because we're new to the complexity of the problem. So yes, it may sound like it's a double down, but it could be the right concept. You just implemented it incorrectly. For instance, here's a good example. Like when you mentioned something relating to operational versus financial. Having a position in your particular company, you have the right position, you just may have the wrong employee. And then you got to factor in that employee turnover rates is expensive. I mean, it simply is a negative, but it impacts the patient care, it can impact morale. You had the right idea with the right employee position, just the wrong person. These are the type of things that means double down on it, yes, but how you go about it, the strategies relating to it. For instance, managing revenue. When you're doing that, you got to consider seasonality. You got to consider the market dynamics. You got all these external things that goes on. Now, yes, you're going to take those into consideration, but how you implement it or how you approach it, well, that could be, something you have to factor in. And that ties in again, going back to tech. I mentioned big data. Well, that's what those type of tools are for. They're expensive, but there's a necessity to it. And if you want to get into that, we could talk about that because those are really important to strategic decision making, especially in health tech.
Right. It's how do you decipher what you got, right? In some degree is that we all can make decisions and we can all say, hey, such a logical thinker. Let me get all the data point together and then we analyze it and go about it. Or we can say, okay, I can do that, but if I don't know what I don't know, I still cannot make a decision as fast as I needed to. And then in business, most time is the faster you can make that decision, the better you can move forward with things. And you do need a sounding board. And just like you're saying, the financial counterbalance into having a sounding board is that, well, do I have a budget to hire a sounding board? And that is that sounding board simply internal executive to help us, or is that external consultant? And what does that even look like? What's the time frame, right? That what's the level of engagement? And when the company on the smaller size, you probably are not able to afford multiple executive to form that integrated board, and you have to think about alternative, what could it be? And if people are coming to you individually as experts and they're all just simply on equity, then how do you really understand if they are working with all your other experts when they are perhaps only working for you 10 hours per month, right? And it's hard enough for you to get on their appointment and then thinking about the doer part, right? So I feel like people needed to really think hard when they make those decisions about what could affect their company's growth, and not
Yeah.
just I think this is a problem and let me just solve this problem.
Yeah, exactly what you're talking about is, partnerships. And people always tend to think they can do it do it alone. They want to make sole decisions, but partnership is actually part of a strategy and improving a profit margin. Believe it or not, yes, there's a cost. But think about the big picture. When you consider a partnership, that can push strategic pursuits. I mean, literally push it forward. These things are relate to improving efficiency. Think about the time you're going to reduce. I mean, whatever is spent identifying high risk, if you're a large organization or a hospital, it could be related to patients. If you're improving accuracy of documentation, if it deals with, say, for instance, health records, continued care. I mean, all of this is related to efficiency. And as a sole decision maker, if you bring on, identified an outside or an external relationship, that could definitely benefit your particular brand. I mean, again, strong brand identity is important for that matter. So, understanding your mission and what values are related to that, having a partner to come on board and assist in these areas will simply identify these risks quickly, because you got what the basic common thing is, another set of eyes, and eyes that are professional, eyes with experience, and eyes who can look from the outside in and be able to identify these type of risks a lot sooner, identify your resources, and that actually in the long run saves money, and therefore your profit goes up.
Right. And when we think about identifying those key areas, one of the challenges has been, at least from what I heard from client, has, well, we serve that kind of client as well, and this B client too, but my clientele mostly is in the B round. But I think of 5, 6 years down the road, we should be able to serve client A, but we don't want to limit ourselves in what we do. So let's just put everything out there. But that's actually causing your brand confusion, because you are not serving those clients anyway, just because they came to you, because that's not exactly what you're doing. And you pretty much are making a promise online for people to search you by those keyword and key terms. And because you're not having the right conversation, you just waste the time for a commitment that you could not actually deliver. Or yes, you can deliver, but not in the ideal way that you should, because that's not really your business model yet. We hear that over and over again, that people say, oh, we spent all this money with marketers and help us really refine who we should go after. And we have 3 personas. I'm like, whoa, okay. Are you create 3 times of engagement and content and sales process for all 3 type of client? That is a lot. Why can't you just pick one, double down on it, truly making something more consistent, use the exactly same resource? And then when you're at a point where you actually have so much more inflow of the right people, the right conversation, then you can start expanding out to the others. And it's not to say the people that initially come to you for this primary problem that you go over, they're not curious enough to ask you about something else, right? So we have to trust ourselves to not like put our hands in 10 different baskets and then feel like, okay, Now you're gonna be like, which apple you have to drop, right? Which basket is more heavier or more important? It's insanity sometimes when people are putting themselves in that spot, and then they wonder, oh, people just don't get what we do. If we just have the right people talking to us, then we really make some difference. It's so convoluted.
Yeah, definitely. That when you were saying those things, it reminded me when I was with Kaiser, we had this patient satisfaction, I'll say score for lack of a better term. And we were looking at patient satisfaction. We were using surveys, feedback forms, patient interviews. And the thing was me being on the tech side, my role was to roll it out, get that data. But the difficulty and the challenges was understanding that data and being able to interpret it back so I can feed it to the leadership. And again, when you talked about how to apply it, that was one of the biggest things that was the feedback. How do we apply it? How is, where and what data silo are we utilizing this, how we apply the metrics to all this. And that was something that I learned professionally, was being able to understand when you're requesting the feedback, when you're requesting information, you're getting and gathering data, is being able to understand the questions almost as if you know exactly what the answer is going to be, but you're catering the questions in a way that can feed into whatever the challenges are related to. So it's not just saying, oh, we're going to go out there and just pursue this and we're just going to throw it out there like, something on the wall and see what happens. It's almost as if you have to understand specifically what you're looking for to be able to get the specific data back. So it was interesting you're saying that. It actually gave me this big flashback of one of the biggest projects that I was involved with and one of the biggest lessons that I learned.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, from a lot of startup that we talk to, people just like, well, we just have to throw things on the wall and see whatever hits. And that concept to me is like, whoa, how much money, resources, and time and energy you're
Exactly.
wasting just to try things out. And it shouldn't be like, oh, I can talk about everything. We can serve everybody. We'll just go for the channel of B2B. Oh, maybe we'll try to B2B2C, or we'll try to B2C. Let's just do some advertisement. Let's do something, and then we'll figure out. And sometimes, yes, the unicorn companies, it seems like, oh, nobody done what we did before, so we're doing something just to see what sticks. But you still have to do your background, your research, take it
Mhm.
down to smaller community, talk to the right people, and the right users, the clinicians, the pharmacists, the therapists, the patients, the caregivers, whoever need to be in any part of that process, have those valuable information and conversation before you just throwing your money just to do something with it, because you have no idea what's right. And do need to talk to other people who has seen multiple different channels, uh, to be able to be more refined. And don't you think, like, when you were at more of a big organization, Kaiser, choosing the right solution to be implementing with the system, right? And then I think even that, what mistake have you seen some of the startups or company being pitching to healthcare systems, and that's why they don't get picked?
Yeah, the again, you mentioned something that was key, which was the financial aspect. Obviously, Kaiser is a very large healthcare organization, so money is not always a factor. So making some mistakes is not going to really hurt us. However, the smaller organizations definitely cannot afford that. So for us, being able to make some minor, mistakes and being able to rebound from it, we can do that quickly. We can be able to overcome it. Now, again, going back to smaller organizations, which I have worked with, these type of things, well, first of all, at this point, I've gotten the background and experience to be able to do a much better job. I like to say that Kaiser gave me so much of that experience for me to be able to, bring that level of knowledge to the consultant side of helping smaller organizations. But I think when these particular smaller business, they have a more of a very specific clientele. So there's a slight advantage. So when you're looking at how you impact that patient care, when you're looking at staff morality, you're looking at overall organizational performance, when you're looking at the KPIs, you have a slight advantage. You definitely can identify and see and get a response quicker, and therefore being able to adapt faster to be able to understand, because you definitely do understand your clientele. Depending on, and it's related to demographic, it's related to your financial capabilities, related to your technology. I'm going to circle back to tech because my background is there, and a lot of that goes into having that to assist you with these things. The decision making related to it, decreasing the healthcare costs, the systems you're using, EMRs, electronic medical records, all of these things can actually give you clear data to help making a decision that ties back to your specific clientele. And I mean, I'll throw out all the buzzwords, the healthcare data, the analytics, the applications. Leveraging these things gives you a huge advantage of understanding, like the V's. We call it the V's: the volume, the velocity, the variety. These are key components that will definitely assist in great decision making, especially for the smaller organizations. But how you're going to have to go about it, well, that's a whole nother show.
Right. We needed to make sure our decision is backed up by data. And some people, it's not about researching whether your market is needed. You know better. You are the expert. You know there is a market. It's more on what type of information you need to produce for people to understand that they have that problem, and you are the resource, and even you have other competitors, you are unique in the way that you can solve this resource. And all those needed to come from a specific way that we leverage, whether that's SEO, that's AI tools to give you all the data point, all the resources to make the right decision. And not just, oh, I'm the expert, I'm the CEO for my brand, I think people like this, let's just create it. And then you get crickets. That's what we don't want to see you guys doing. And same thing with give value, share resources. There's a lot to talk about. We're definitely going to have more to chat with Dr. Bryant for the next time. So hopefully you guys have some insight. Comment below and tell us what is that you're struggling when it comes to consistent growth, in terms of whether making that revenue margin or not having to go through the ups and downs of roller coaster. What has been some practice you've been doing that has kept you keep moving upwards? Until next time.
Thank you for listening to HealthTech Growth. If you're a healthcare tech innovator or founder interested in being a featured guest on our show, visit healthtechgrowth.io to learn more.